As we learn from these case studies about youth participatory budgeting and the work of El Centro, it really underscores the ways in which we can influence who decides, what issues are decided, and how they're decided. And one of the things that really connected those two case studies was the centrality of relationships. Having relationships, being able to read the map of relationships so that you can influence all three of these dimensions is really important. Well, relationships matter to us as well here at this show, and our relationship to you, the viewers. And that's why every episode we take a couple of questions that have come in from you via social media. The first one from Liana is this: what are the pros and cons of caucusing versus primaries? It's a great and very timely question. And in short, really, caucuses give us this opportunity to have face-to-face, old-fashioned town meeting style persuasion of people. But the downside of caucuses is that they're not necessarily representative of the community. Only some people may have the wherewithal, the resources, the knowledge to actually show up for a caucus, where many others will be left out. Primaries are sort of the inverse. They are potentially, at least, broadly representative because anybody can vote in a primary who's eligible, but they lose that dimension of community, of face-to-face participation and engagement. And the question as we weigh these pros and cons simply is, which form has more legitimacy? The outcomes of each are interesting and you can count the votes, but you really understand when you have one rule set versus another that maybe one gives you a different kind of legitimacy, a different kind of representation based on whether people got to participate or whether they got to really engage one another in conversation. The second question we got came from Dave on Facebook, and it's super interesting. How do certain roads and bridges make it into the massive transportation bill while others are left off? That's sort of a classic statement of the agenda-setting question. What's in, what's out? And the federal transportation bill, this massive, massive piece of legislation, going back to 2010, they changed the rules on this. There used to be things called earmarks, where individual members of Congress could drop in funding for their pet projects, most infamously this bridge to nowhere in Alaska. But in 2010, when the Tea Party came in, they changed those rules. They stopped earmarks. And so the upside of these new rules is there's a lot more focus on data and rational argument and what works and what should be justified as fundable. The downside, though, is in the absence of that relational web to make some things work, to grease some things, you have a flood of lobbyists now coming in to lobby members, to lobby staff, to make the case for localities, for special interests about why this project and why not that project. And again, it's a really good instance of how changing these rules of participation changes outcomes in what kind of agenda gets made and what gets included. Well, for us here at this show, we are so interested in hearing your questions and your thoughts and your ideas, and we want to encourage you to reach out to us on Twitter, on Facebook, and through old-fashioned email. Please send us your ideas and your questions. Well, that wraps up this episode of Citizen University TV. In our next episode, we're going to take a deep look at power structures, what they are, how we enter them, how we break them, how we change them. We hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching Citizen University TV, and keep tuning in.